Okay, I will call the meeting to order then. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. All individuals entering city-owned facilities, including City Hall, are required to wear a non-medical face mask. Those at the table are not required to wear masks while sitting, as long as they're distanced 6 feet from anyone else. Once you leave your seat at the table, you must put your mask back on. As directed by Manitoba Health, we're requesting people avoid close contact within 2 meters with anyone showing symptoms of a respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing. If you're experiencing flu-like symptoms, we're requesting that you excuse yourself from the room. Please note when you join the meeting via Zoom, all participants will be in the waiting room and your microphone will be muted until the host lets you in to the room. You can watch the hearing live via the City's Board of Revision YouTube channel. When called upon, you'll be allowed from the waiting room and permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once you've been heard, you can continue to watch the hearing live via the City's Board of Revision YouTube channel. If any participants are currently watching the live meeting on YouTube, please mute your audio player now. I begin by introducing the members of the panel. At the head of the table, to the right is Mr. Harvey Diamond, and to his left is Mr. Jeff Pietsch. My name is Stu McPherson. I'll be chairing the hearing today. Representing the City of Winnipeg Assessment and Taxation Department is Mr. Jeremy Pohl, and the recording secretary is Ms. Cara Belshaw. We'll be hearing applications for the revision of the assessment roll in accordance with Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application and will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Please be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council, and it's independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I'll confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in, and we'll then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they so wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave, and the process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. Just as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. The use of cell phones is not permitted except by the approval of the chair. If you do have a cell phone, please put it on silent at this moment. And Ms. Belshaw, I'll have you swear the parties in, please.
Please state your name. Please state your name. Do you affirm the evidence you will present today is the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Morning, Mr. Sitkowski. You're here representing the owners of 120 Fort and 181 Higgins, is that correct? And it's the amount of assessed value only for 2021 that's in contention today?
Well, we will not be arguing to reduce the assessments on these properties. We will accept the valuations as they are.
Okay, but it's just value we're dealing with, not dealing with classification or liability. That's correct. Okay. Okay, Mr. Pohl, good morning. We'll hear from you when you're ready, please. We'll start with 120 Fort.
124, roll number is 12093076000. Our assessed value for 2021 is $1,229,000. This property was built in 1929, has an effective year of 1950. Has a gross floor area of 12,900 square feet and the leasable area of 8,300 square feet approximately. There's 35 outdoor stalls. You turn to my page 4, pictures of location of the property, as well as elevations on page 5. So on page 2, we have the INE that was reported. And on page 3, there's 4 tenants in the property. So it is fully occupied. On page 6 is our comparables for our OFDs, is what we have this graded as. Our average rate is $11.40. Our weighted average is $12.70, and our median is $11 for the 53 comparables that we have, and an inventory of approximately 270,000 square feet of inventory that was leased out approaching the reference date. On page 7 is the workup parking lot. We have it in our model parameter for downtown at $90 for outside stalls. For 35 produces a net operating income of $37,800. Capped at 4.5% gives us a capitalized value at $840,000. So our next workup is on page 8. We have an average rent put to the property of $8.19. We then put our parameters for OFDs at 40% for vacancy, which produces an effective gross income of $58,938. Our expenses are at 2%, and our shortfall is at $7.50, which reduces the effective gross income to net operating income of $48,978, capped at 8.05%, gives us $608,000. So combined, we have a workup that is estimated at $1,229,000. That is the value that we have on it. Any questions?
Thank you. Mr. Sitkowski, do you have any questions for the assessor?
No questions.
Thank you. Mr. Diamond?
I have no questions, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Piesh?
No questions.
And I have no questions. Mr. Sitkowski, did you have a comment on this property? I think you said you were seeking confirmation.
Yes, we are accepting the value as stated, $1,229,000.
Thank you. And Mr. Pohl, you have no questions or concerns regarding that. Mr. Diamond, questions or concerns?
No, thank you.
Mr. Piesh? And I have none. Thank you. So we'll move on to the next property is 181 Higgins. When you're ready, Mr. Assessor, we'll hear from you, please.
Roll number is 13096024500. 181 Higgins. For 2021 year, we have $1,718,000 as class code 40 school exempt taxes, and we have $914,000 class code 40 fully exempt taxes, to produce a total value of a total assessed value of $2,632,000. This building was built in 1911. It's had some upgrades. We have an effective age put on it in 1950. The majority of the property in 1999. Best way to describe it, it's about 50% leasable efficiency. If you look at page 5, it's the old railway station on the corner of Higgins and Main. We've looked at this property in the past. I dealt with it with Mr. Story. We've had it adjusted, and we downgraded this property. If you look at our income stream on page 7, for 28,294 square feet, we have $4.85 a square foot. I can't bring you any comparables because we've put it significantly below the market average, which is on page 6 same comparable list that I just used for OFD for the last property. You look over on page 8. Again, that's the C2 space, which is 53,000 square feet, and again, $4.82. When we run our mathematics on property, and I'll go through it now. On page 7, when we apply the $4.85 a square foot to the 28,294 square feet at 14% for vacancy, gives an effective gross income of $118,014. 2% for expenses, $7.50 for shortfall gives us a net operating income of $85,945, capped at a relatively high cap rate at 9.4%, gives us $914,000. That's for the exempt space. On page 8, basically the same parameters that we put on as we were speaking to as following the prior page. We have $4.82 applied to 53,600 square feet. Gives us a potential rent of $158,352. Vacancies at 14% gives us effective gross income of $222,183. Expenses at 2% and shortfall at $7.50 gives us net operating income of $161,459, capped at the same 9.4%, gives us $1,718,000 for the school exempt portion of the property. So summated on page 9, we have our estimated market value, assessed value at $2,632,000. We looked at this property and we downgraded the income stream, put a relatively low rate on it, given the fact that it is what it is.
I thank you. Mr. Sikowski, any questions for the assessor?
Just one question. So I just wanted to confirm that this value that you're that you have noted here reflects the value that was agreed to in 2020, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Diamond. Mr. Diamond, questions?
Thank you.
Mr. Pietsch, questions? And I have no questions. Mr. Sikowski, did you have a statement to make then?
Again, we agreed to the value that was presented by the assessor.
Okay, I thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Sikowski. We'll excuse you, and you'll receive the orders in due course by registered mail. Thank you.
Mr. Chairperson, we do not have an applicant here for item number 3, file 20-412, which I believe is scheduled to be heard next. So wondering if you'd like to move that to the end, or
We will push that to the end, yes. Thank you. Is there someone for item number 4?
there is. They are participating via Zoom, so I'll just get them up here now.
Okay, thank you. Who is the applicant?
This is
It's a numbered company, but who is representing them? Do we know?
Mark Carroll and Matei Gamio.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't get those names.
Hi there.
Good morning.
Good
Morning, gentlemen.
Why don't we do some intros then?
Yeah,
to help out.
absolutely. My name's a hard one to pronounce, so I totally understand. My name's Matan Gamliel, and this is Mark Karen.
Thank you. And you were present for the introduction, so we went through. Okay, and you're here representing the owners of 383 Dover Court,
Correct.
and it's the amount of the assessed value for 2021 that we're dealing with.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So maybe I can just affirm their statements. For the record, please state your name one at a time.
Matan Gamliel.
Do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
And
Mark Caron?
do you affirm the evidence you'll present today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are you going to return me to the meeting, Kara?
You're in the meeting.
Thank you. Okay, so we will deal with 383 Dover Court. When you're ready, Mr. Assessor, we'll hear your evidence, please.
Roll number is 0306521160, 383 Dover Court. Our assessment for 2021 is $2,288,000. The building property was developed or built. Building was built in 1992.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Assessor. Kara, I do not seem to have the briefs for
Item
no, I don't have. All I have is item 3.
okay, I sent an email just after that at 8:36 this morning that has the attachments for item 4. I can resend it.
8:36. No, I did not get that one. I have 8:34, and then I have one from you at 8:56.
Okay, I'm sending it again here.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the interruption, everyone.
It may be that the files are too big, Stu. I'll send you just the assessor's brief. Or unless
Okay.
that's
Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Pohl, for interrupting you, but I'll ask you to start over, if you would, please. 383 Dover Court Drive.
So for 383 Dover Court, we have a property that was developed in 1992. We have gross floor area or leasable area of 10,452 square feet. If you look on my page 3 is the property photos, the location. And then on page 4 is some elevation views of the property. We have no interior photos of the property. I don't believe we've been there very recently. On page 2, there was a sale, April 17, 2020. I did not actively look at that sale for this purpose of this assessment. Our reference date is April 1st, 2018. Anything that happens after that is post-reference information, and that's for the prior cycle, the next cycle for the 2000 and this would be 2023 cycle. We also have a change of hands of ownership. When we look for the subject property leases from the former owner submitting the INEs, they did not submit any INEs. So we have no information to go from as far as leasable information or whether it was owner occupied prior. We don't know. So I look to the market. I look to the Waverly, Taylor area. We have 31 comparables. The total inventory is 460,000 square feet approximately, a median CRU of 12,243 square feet. We get an average rent of $15.20, a weighted average of $14.17, and a median of $15.32. So it's a good analysis. It's nice and tight. If you look at, there's 14 comparables that range between $15 and $17. So approximately half of them. We look on page 6 is the workup for the property. We have it in at $16.25 a square foot, which is right in the upper end of the range. For the 10,452 square feet, we get a potential rent of $169,845. With our standard parameters applied at 5.5 vacancy, gives us effective gross income of $160,504. Expenses at 2% and shortfall at 7 gives us a net operating income of $153,270. Capped at 6.7% gives us our 2.287 million, which rounded is 2,288,000. That is our submission. It's a pretty straightforward property. I'm open to questions.
I thank you. You lost me for a second, Ms. Belshaw? Okay, thank you. The applicants have questions for the assessor.
Yes, we do, right?
Yes, we do have questions. The main questions would probably surround page 5 of the assessor's brief, would be to request if there were any comparables that were more in line with the direct street or frontage property that is similar to our building. So we noticed that many of the properties identified were far greater traffic flow than would be on Dover Court. And in our support, which we will get to if we have the opportunity, our apologies because it's our first time doing a position like this, identify that there are comparables that are closer to the street that we were on, so Scurfield, Dover Court. And so wanted to know if any of those comparables were available to the assessor.
I went straight for the market in the area. I brought in all the leases that I could find that were approaching the reference date. Yes, some of these are in higher traffic flow corridors, but you're not that far off of Waverly. You're just a couple blocks off. So I didn't look specifically for interior properties. I just looked at the marketplace surrounding the area.
So these are high traffic flow areas, typically retail, like you'll have Benjamin Moore, you'll have retail outlets, for example, that are looking for foot traffic. The buildings that we're in and around are like Manitoba Hydro, Shaw, small, not retail construction companies, they're office complexes. Taylor is a high traffic area where you have lots of retail outlets. You have some businesses that are there, like the property management companies that are there. So some of these, I think we feel that some of these properties and comparables, as well, Hargrave Street and St. Boniface, are not really as relevant to our building area. Is what
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt you there. As you said, you're new at this sort of thing, but at this point, if you could keep your questioning just to what the assessors presented, and in the form of questions, let them answer. Anything that you're saying other than that is probably going to be part of your presentation, and you will have that opportunity to do that. So if you just keep it to questions for the assessor about the evidence that he's presented at this time.
Sure. Thanks for the direction.
Thank you.
I guess my second question would be on page 8 of which identifies the capitalization rates of the assessor's brief. I just wanted to know, or just curious, what would be the difference between suburban A and suburban B? And is my understanding correct that we fall in line with suburban A for office?
Suburban A and Suburban B are both the same capitalization rates. They're both 6.2, between a range of 6.2 and 7.3%. Suburban A is just your better class. Suburban B is your little bit less class, but it's anything outside the downtown area. So.
Okay, better class versus less class. I think those are all the questions that we had on the brief.
Yeah, on the brief, yeah.
Okay, I thank you. Mr. Diamond, did you have questions for the assessor?
Yes, I do. So this property is being used as office property, not retail?
We don't have any.
I have no idea.
The prior owner never submitted any income expense questionnaires, from what I can tell with office. But, I can't.
My question really comes out of the fact that I heard them ask you a question about traffic flows. And if it is office, I don't think it matters as much. But
And
if it's
all-
retail, it could matter more.
And all the comparables that we have are office. If this was a property that is now retail, we would be looking at probably different income streams.
Okay, so it is, okay. Because from the picture, I couldn't tell. So in fairness, it is, you, based on your comparables, you are at the higher end on this one.
I wouldn't say necessarily the higher end. Half of my comparables are in the $15 to $17 range. So
Yeah, and your average I see is simply lower, as is the median. Is there a reason why this property has been assessed at a higher per square foot rental rate
just
than
the newer,
in your comparables?
the newer of the building, like it's a newer building.
Okay, so looking at your comparables, the ones that have lower rents, you're saying are older buildings?
Most of them, yes. You see, 2005, 2002, 1998. Typically, when you get a newer building, better building, you get a little bit.
Yeah, look at the, yeah. Okay, I see, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pietsch?
They mentioned it's a newer building. Have you had an opportunity to walk through the building? You have this sort of above the mean in terms of
A little bit, yes.
slightly. So have you had the opportunity to walk through any of the buildings that you presented as comparables that are in that range?
Just the file photos, most of them.
No other questions?
Thank you. Just clarification, Mr. Pohl, on your capitalization rate chart on page 8. The difference between suburban A and suburban B, I think you said it's the same. You meant it's the same range that the City of Winnipeg Assessment Taxation Department uses. And the difference between the A and B is with the market studies by CBRE and Cushman Wakefield, where they actually break it down, whereas Colliers or the city does not. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. And I have nothing further. So I will.
Just, can we just call it 2-minute recess?
Yes, we can have a 10-minute recess at this time, and we'll return at 9:40, please. The applicants are back online?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I will call the hearing back to order. At this point, we'll hear the applicant's evidence. First, I would just like to note, I looked ahead at some of the material. As the assessor had stated, the reference date for the 2021 assessment year is April 1st, 2018. And anything that's after that is considered to be post-reference information, which if it happened in 19 or 20, that would be taken into consideration for the next assessment cycle. So as you had stated, you are novices when it comes to this sort of a proceeding, but I would just like to restate that you are allowed to present the evidence that you wish. I will give you leeway on that. However, post-reference information cannot be given any weight, basically, at this particular time. But having said that, please present your case as fully as you'd like, and we can deal with it with questioning as well. So whenever you're ready, I have your information presented. So however you'd like to do it, if you would like to just summarize, or if there's things that you want to dwell on, please go ahead.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate the assistance with this. I also really appreciate everyone's time on the board. So thank you for taking the time to listen to us. I do understand the position that anything essentially post April 1st, 2018, any transactions that happen subsequent to that shouldn't really be used as evidence. But although a transaction has occurred subsequent, given that we weren't in the position to challenge the property assessment value prior to April 1st, 2018, a lot of our reference comparables and our reference information in the building appraisal that was done, which triggered our review of the assessment price and triggered our review of the city's assessments value as well. Obviously that occurred afterward, but reference periods do, and comparables of the reference periods are earlier than 2018, April 1st, 2018 as well. And so although some of the documents that are presented have a date subsequent to April 1st, 2018, what I will be discussing actually does refer to before April 1st, 2018 as well. So to start it off, again, thank you, but we want to identify that we did do a transaction. We were the tenants of the property as at April 1st, 2018. We have been the tenants to 383 Dover Court for almost 30 years now.
20 years.
So with prior ownership of the landlord, and he had purchased it from another individual or another company. But in that time, we have always been the tenants essentially since the building was built. In 2020, April 1st, 2020 is when we purchased the building from the landlord. And that is what triggered the appraisal, the environmental survey assessor, or the ESA phase 1, as well as negotiations. Prior to that purchase price negotiation, we engaged Cushman Wakefield Stevenson to perform the appraisal. As I'm sure you've read or at least have seen, and we attach as our support, they use both the cost approach, income approach, and direct comparison approach, with the focus on income and direct comparison, which is in line with the assessor's use when they're also using the income approach. The data utilized by both the income approach and the direct comparison approach was sourced from comparable regional market transactions between June 2016 and June 2019. So recognizing that after 2018 wouldn't be able to be utilized, between June 2016 and April 1st, 2018, there are comparables there. We believe that those comparables are far more comparable or useful, applicable to our property. They are properties that are on Scurfield or on Dover Court, or are also on one that is on Waverly. But 7 out of the 10 comparables that are utilized on page 23 are from Scurfield, and 1 of them is from Dover Court. So far more aligned with our traffic flow, far more aligned with the age of which the building was built, and far more aligned with what we feel is the size and use of our property. In January 2020, we engaged HLC Consulting to perform an environmental site assessment level 1, as I indicated. At that time, they identified mold growth in one corner of the building due to a water leak from old and damaged roof. And the roof of that property had not been repaired or replaced since the property was first built in 1992. We've been the tenants for 30 years. we were aware of that for far longer than just since 2020. Obviously, that is just our position, but we have been in contract negotiations with the landlord or the previous owner of the building for almost 4 years already, and as a result, we've been on a month-to-month lease since that time. It got to the point where we had stated that we just can't be in negotiations for lease agreements any longer, and we decided to purchase the property from him and repair all those damages at that time. And it wasn't just repair, the roof actually had to be a full replacement. Obviously, we weren't in a position to do that transaction prior to our ownership, and since we were in negotiations for those repairs and replacements and betterment of the building for over 4 years, and yet it never got done, we feel that we're aware that the condition of that building was in that position well before April 1st, 2018. The challenge is that we were only able to act on those when we had control, which happened subsequent to April 1st, 2018, which was in April 2020. Obviously, at that time, and I know we're talking about because it's been redacted, the purchase price at that point was $1.8 million. Reason why I state that is because only to go backwards, the full replacement of the roof and other necessary repairs to the building was $250,000 at that time. Meaning that if you take the purchase price of $1.8 million, you add on the $250,000, we believe that the property in good working condition is $2,050,000, which is directly in line with that appraisal that was done for the purposes of or prior to the transaction. Since that transaction, and obviously subsequent to April 1st, so in June or July of 2020, we actually did act upon the replacement of the roof. They identified significant damage to about 3/4 of the roof, and so it had to be a full repair, and it cost us this amount of money, over $200,000 to date, just to do a full repair, as well as other betterments around that were required. To talk about, just to go back to ask a question, is this the appropriate time where we can also talk to the assessor's brief, or has that happened subsequently?
Well, you had an opportunity to question him on his brief, but if you have comments on the information, you can certainly make that as well.
Okay, I appreciate that. So as we had questioned about the comparables with the assessor's brief beforehand, just to ask if he had evaluated those properties that we identified in our comparables. We noticed, or it can be identified that in the assessor's brief, they use 21 out of 31 properties are for Waverly, Taylor, and Pembina locations. 4 others are in St. B or in the downtown location. There's really only 2 or 3 out of those entire 31 comparable list that are far more in line with our properties. The challenge here, and as we've identified, is that the Taylor, Waverly, Pembina locations are all high traffic, typically used for retail, typically used for newer buildings or for to get the frontage space is essentially marketing for the business. We're on Dovercourt, which is tucked in on the back end, right beside the parking lot of the Mazda dealership at the Waverly Auto Mall. We are the furthest building on Dovercourt. We have no traffic flow unless you're coming here strictly for our building only. Across from us is Hydro. There's a data center. There's nothing in our area other than our building, and maybe there might be a gym, like a CrossFit gym, across the street as well. So the use of our building, the use of the buildings in our area, are not those that would be typically found on Taylor, or on Waverly, or on Pembina, or on Hargrave Street, or Marion, as the assessor had identified. And so we feel like, or we believe that the appraisal that we had conducted for the purposes of prior to the transaction are more aligned with the application use of our building, given that 8 out of the 10 are Sturfield and one of them is Doverport. And those properties, and we identify that, as you identify, that nothing after April 1st, 2018 can be utilized. 6 out of those 10, all of which are Sturfield, all fall within that date range that has been requested. All the ones that were subsequent, so property, if you look at page 23 of our appraisal, index 1, 2, and 3, which is Dovercourt, Waverly, and Sturfield, the first 3. Yes, we identified that those are subsequent to April 2018, but all of those are actually above our mean price that was used for the calculation on the income approach. Therefore, the remaining ones would actually be lower and would drop our mean comparison price furthermore. Mark, is there anything else that
You covered all of that. Yeah, I think there's only 2 or 3 comparables from the assessor that's really applicable.
There is, or one other thing I did want to identify is that we recognize that the previous landlord did have an opportunity to challenge the property city assessment value prior to April 1st, 2018, or even as at that time. But because we were the tenants and in our agreement, whether it was a good agreement or not, our contractual lease agreement, whether it was good or not, all of the city of Winnipeg's property assessment was passed through to our property tax price, was passed through to us as a tenant through additional rent. Therefore, we only had an ability to pay it, yet we didn't have the control to actually challenge it. And the landlord had no incentive to actually challenge the city assessment's value because the property tax was a flow-through cost for him. And therefore, he had, or the company had, no ability to make a gain to challenge it. It only would have been just additional cost for them.
Correct. So I think with the building condition, knowing what we had to deal with, the higher end value as well, probably should be looked at, is what I would also like to state.
Okay, that is your presentation then, gentlemen?
That concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Okay, I thank you. I will turn it over to the assessor for his questions then, please.
Okay, I just have a few. I want to point out, I realize you're new to this, but we can't be relying on any post-reference information, and basically everything that I see here is post-reference. Do you have, and I know the answer to this, but you don't have any anything in your material that would be before April 1st or on April 1st, 2018?
We do not have a building appraisal that was conducted prior to April 1st, 2018, but as I indicated in my presentation, the comparable properties have reference periods that occurred prior to April 1st, 2018.
If we go to your page 23, I don't really have much to work from here. I can't investigate this because it is for post-reference. I'm not going to put any weight to it. But we see that a number of these start after, I believe 5 of them start after the reference date. The first 1 till 5 are all post-reference. The remaining 6 through 10, the median CRU size for these properties is 3,700 square feet approximately. And your property is 3 times that size.
And so if they're smaller, they would actually, by process of economics and microeconomics, they would actually demand a higher rental rate.
Not in all cases. Given the utility of the property, some tenancies require a certain size. Given the certain size, they're looking and can command more for a larger space to suit a business. What I see here is even in comparables 1, 2, and 3, you get a range of $1,350, $1,550, and $1,525. So there is a range here that is established, and you're in at just over $16. So pretty close.
Mr. Pohl, first you're saying that you can't rely on the post-reference, but now you're referring to it?
What I'm saying is that this analysis, the way that we see it, there is such a range in area of size and such a range in area of size and per square foot rate even though there's post-reference information, this doesn't make a good analysis, in my opinion. It just doesn't.
So did you have a question for the applicants then regarding that?
Well, I'm just pointing this out, that
Okay.
their property size is simply not the same as the comparables when you look at the comparables that occurred before the reference date.
May I ask the assessor a question?
Sure.
So is your position that our third-party independent property appraisal was done incorrectly and that should have been used different comparables?
No, I'm saying that my comparison is more appropriate. I'm just pointing out that when you have a comparable property of 1,100 square feet, 1,900 square feet, you shouldn't really be using that rent associated with 10,000 square feet. You should be looking away from that, or at least have a number of properties that are more inclusive of that. You mentioned that you were the property owners or you leased the property for 30 years.
Correct.
So
You didn't have any ability to appeal. Or is this, you're 100% tenant of the property? You pay the taxes in totality?
let me clarify that. So in the early days, there was two tenants in this building, and this building is built in basically was built in two phases. Phase one, there was part A of the building built, and then phase two, a number of years later, an extension of the building was built. There's really three units in this building, three separate door entrances. And this is before my time, but when IC Group was here, or the numbered company formerly known as IC Group, they had a portion of the building as being the renters. We had about 2/3 of the building, and there was another group that had the other third. That when that group moved out, the company rented the entire building from the owner. During that time, when that other company moved out, they were the original owners of the building, and they sold the building, and we continued to rent in this building, and then we took over the entire building. So for the last 20 odd years, we have been the sole occupant in this building. Somewhat 20 years or so. I'd have to double check the dates, but essentially, and it was the same. We paid the rent to the landlord, and we had the lease, and we had, like Matan mentioned, 4 or 5 years of conversations about changing the lease because the lease was set up to deal with 3 tenants, and really there was only one.
So prior it was, the building was set up to be 3 CRUs. Currently it is 1 CRU, commercial rental unit. There's
Right.
Yeah, one CRU, just us.
Yes,
Currently
yeah,
we are owner managed or owner.
How long has it been 1 CRU?
We are one CRU.
Yeah.
How long have you been paying the taxes in totality?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
How long have you been paying the taxes in totality? Like, how many?
Since it's got to be the 20 years or so, because it was a flow through cost, and that would be billed to us almost 8 to 12 months later. That's not that this is all a good story, but that's how the landlord did it through additional rent, and it was taxes, hydro, water, and then it was just this big bill that he would give us, somewhat 8 or 9 months later to pay, and then we would pay that, and then we would ask for detailed documentation, and we never had the opportunity to challenge it and push back on it.
Just to make the gentleman aware, if there's nothing in your lease that states that you can't, that you were allowed as a tenant, as long as you're paying the taxes in totality of a property, to appeal that property. So you
Did not know that.
Would have been amazing to have known 20 years
Did
ago.
not know that. Thank you.
Right.
getting to your, and I did look at your the one environmental site assessment. Can you just, for my purpose, on your page 12.7, it's recommending that it's not for a phase 2 and that there is only some additional mold that needs to be dealt with due to some water leakage. Is there any, like what was the purpose of bringing in this this assessment report for the environmental report?
The purpose of doing an ESA phase 1 was because we were purchasing the building in April 1st, 2020, and so we needed to be aware of the absolute condition of the building as at that point in time. I recognize that's after April 1st, 2018. We were aware of the damage to the roof. We were aware of the leakage. We were aware of the black mold at that point in time, or the potential
When
for
it
black
was disclosed, yeah.
when it was disclosed prior to even April 1st, 2018. But for the purposes of the transaction and to ensure that we had a complete and full documentation for negotiation purposes with the landlord, we agreed that we would conduct an ESA phase 1 prior to the purchase price agreement.
Okay, but as of January 1st, 2020, which would be the physical condition of the property, what's there, there is really no real environmental impact. This report indicates there's really nothing much to the property other than a few mold issues for water.
Well, a few mold issues is $200,000 to repair a roof, but yes, correct.
That's all the questions I have.
Thank you. Mr. Diamond, questions?
Yes, you indicate your tenants of the property for 20 years or more before you purchased it.
Yes.
And you indicated also that you paid rent in 2 fashions, one a monthly rent, and every year he billed you additional rent for all the expenses that were incurred.
So we paid monthly, which included a regular base rent, and we also paid an additional rent, but the additional rent was an estimate based on, I guess, the accumulation of additional rent items from the prior year. And then we receive, as Mark indicated, about 8 months later, a top-up reconciliation payment that would be charged to us.
What was the base rent that you paid as at April the 1st of 2018?
That's a great question. I think we have it in our building appraisal, and I think the appendices document. My apologies if I don't have that immediately on me, but I'm pretty sure it was included in the appendix of the building appraisal. But that's a very good question. I have it. There. 111967776. See it in purchases. Give me a moment, I'll search it up on my laptop. Sure. Do you have other questions while I search for that? I don't want to leave that for you though.
Yeah, before we get into further questions, the last 2 pages of the appraisal, is that the lease that was in effect between 67786 Manitoba and the IC Group? And it was January 2001. Was there a more current one than that?
I don't believe so. Subsequent to 2001, what we would often do is we do amendments, which would just amend the lease for a year or 2. But that was the last actual, I believe that might have been the last actual lease agreement that was signed by both parties, let alone amended subsequently.
But there would be annual step-ups in rent, or?
Yes, very informally via emails or sometimes a letter stating this is what your new rent is. I don't believe that might be in there.
Yeah, okay. So if there were increases in rent, then I guess Mr. Diamond's question is still what was it, April 1st, 2018?
Yes, there would have been increases in rent. There absolutely would have been, and I will identify that.
Okay, thank you.
Since we're on the topic, may I interject with a question? On 7 of the appraisal report, talks to the existing lease. it indicates that it's about a $20.06 rent gross. And you indicated that the tenant, the owner charged you an additional rent at the end of the year to cover the costs of maintenance.
So the $20.06 per square foot. Sorry, Mark, do you have it? Sorry, what page are you looking at?
27.
Page 27.
Indicated that you also pay an additional rent at the end of the year to cover costs. I'm just curious what the costs were if you're paying a gross rent.
Which sentence are you looking at?
Page 27 in the Cushman Wakefield appraisal.
Yeah, I'm looking at page 27.
Determination of net income, existing lease terms, which you would have been the tenant paying the rent.
What are these looking? The 27 that I have printed out is the one with the chart on it.
I'm looking.
PDF 27.
It's an 84-page document. It's item number 4.
Appraisal, it's on page 27 of what we've got. And there's a chart on it.
The heading of the page is determination of net income.
Yeah. So is it 27 out of 84 or is it 32 out of 84?
27 out of 80.
That's the difference.
Oh, it's 27.
It's the PDF you're looking at.
Page number.
Right, bottom right corner of the page.
That's page number on this.
So it's page number 22.
Oh, yeah.
So as the effective date of this appraisal, the subject building was occupied by a single tenant. Oh, there we go. So yes, that would have been the monthly rent. We were paying a monthly rent of $17,480.98. That included both base and additional rent, but then there would be a top-up additional rent subsequent to that, which was the adjustment. So we paid $18,488.98 on a monthly basis, plus I think GST was included there as well. Because I think we were paying like $18,900.
Yeah, I remember 16,000 and then it went up.
Yeah. And we also felt that we were being overcharged, which is what led to purchasing it outright from them.
Yeah, well, that was the next question, I guess. Do you have any idea of what portion of the $20.06 per foot you were paying per month was rent and what part was expenses of the landlord and was the triple net portion?
No, I'm not aware at this time. We may have some supporting schedules that has it split off via email communication, but I don't have that at this time.
Okay, thank you.
I believe I thought it was over like around 50% of it may have been additional rent and 50% of it may have been base rent, but that's me guessing.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. That's my question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diamond. Mr. Piesh.
Just to follow up on this, this $20.06, was this the rent at the time of the appraisal or at April 2018?
Of the appraisal, this was the rate as of 2020.
And you were looking through your documents. Are you able to find the rent at the reference date?
Lanes. Sorry, I have Great Plains. This can take us forever to open up. Can I ask Christine to look it up?
If you can give us 3 minutes, we'd be happy to go get that for you. I'm just trying to open up my accounting software on a VPN. It's not the easiest thing.
Would that tell us what the base rent was though?
Well,
Or
say
would it just tell us, it would just tell us the combined, and you're not able to break that down as to what's base and what's
we'd have to do
what's expenses that you're responsible for. Is that correct?
correct.
we'd have to go and do some analysis on that.
Yeah, then Mr. Piesh, is that going to be something that's of value?
You know what? That's fine. I have no other questions.
Okay, I thank you. Just when you were questioning the assessor earlier, I kind of interrupted you because you were presenting some evidence that I thought should be part of your presentation.
Yep.
I'm just going to give you an opportunity to follow up on that if you wish. I think you were talking about frontage of properties.
Yeah, I believe we have dealt with that. Again,
Okay.
I talked about the stats of 21 to 31, 4 out of the remaining 4 St. Peter downtown. So I think we've covered it. So I appreciate that opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so if there's nothing further. Mr. Pohl, do you wish a summation for this property?
Yeah, just a quick summation. We have we don't have up until now, we didn't have a contract rent in place that we could do for analysis or look at for analysis because the former owner didn't fill out their INEs. We looked at the marketplace. We're doing market rent with market parameters. We have a $16.25 square foot rate put on 10,000 square, a little over 10,000 square feet. We have 14 comparables in between $15 and 17 cents in the area of the subject property. Our median CRU size is 12,243 square feet, which is very close to the little over 10,000 square feet. So we do have a good analysis to put them in the market rent that we put them in at $6.25. I see no reason to reduce it. Looking at the appellant's information, all of it's post-reference, but given the comparisons that they're on page 28 of the appraisal report, we see an average CRU size of 3,700 square feet approximately for the rents that are post, or I guess I should say pre-April 1st, 2018. That is not a good analysis. It's not equivalent to the subject property. I don't think that those rents should be at 1,100 square feet, 3,800 square feet, 4,200 square feet. It's not a close comparison to this. With that having said, summation I have.
Thank you. Gentlemen, would you care for a summation?
Sure. So thank you very much. We believe that the property, although obviously the reference period of significant portion of our evidence, or at least of our reconciliations of the purchase price, was done subsequently to April 1st, 2018. It was done using third-party evidence. It was done using third-party appraisal. We did our due diligence prior to doing any negotiation. And as is evident in the city of Winnipeg over the past 4 years, property values have not been declining. So if you were to take that and go backwards, although I know we shouldn't be, or take that and go backwards, you would get to a purchase price of $1.8 million, which includes a betterment of $250,000, or a requirement for a betterment of $250,000. So even as at April 1st, 2018, if all else being equal, if there had been no changes, if property values didn't even increase or decrease in the slightest bit, you would have a market value as appraised at $2,050,000. And we believe that that's more aligned because we have aligned applicable comparables that are closer to the relevant streets, relevant frontage, relevant space as our property.
Okay, I thank you. I thank you for presentations today then. That will conclude this property, and you will receive our order by registered mail in due course. Thank you very much for presentations today.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, did you receive the email concerning the items for the brief item 7?
I did, and there are 3 PDFs for it.
Great. I'll send you the other 2 so we're ready when those ones come up.
Okay, thank you. So we have to deal with 3 more properties with Fillmore Riley. Oh, Mr. Newman. Mr. Newman is present.
He is. They're just discussing.
Oh, you want to go outside? Okay.
Can we just call a 2-minute recess, please?
Yes, we will take a 2-minute recess. Swear the party in, please.
Yeah, just give me a moment where he's just getting them back up. For the record, please state your name.
Mark Newman,
Do you affirm the evidence you'll present to the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Newman.
Morning,
You're
Mr.
here-
Chairman.
You're here representing the owners for 3 properties today, and it's the amount of the assessed value for 2021 that we're dealing with. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
I will also tell you that Mr. Poole and I have had some discussions during the recesses, and we've worked out agreements on all 3.
That's tremendous to hear. So perhaps what we'll do is we'll just deal with them in order. And the first property we'll deal with then is 6 Roslyn, and we'll hear from the assessor when you're ready, please, sir.
The roll number is 12032443000, 6 Roslyn. We have an assessed value of $1,834,000. I'm making a recommendation today down to $1,452,000. Well, sorry, $1,400,000. Sorry, that's correct.
Sorry, what's that number?
400,000.
1,400,000 even?
Yes, and that's based on, if you look on page 13, that's a reduction in rent to $12 with our standard parameters and a change in capitalization rate to 6.95%, up from 6.7%.
Clarification on that, $12 overall rental rate, 6.9% cap rate?
6.95% cap rate,
6.95, thank you.
and the standard parameters after that.
Just for the record, would you give us the standard parameters that you're using?
Yeah, no, I was just waiting for everyone to write it down. Okay. $12 applied to the 9411 square feet. Our vacancy is at 5.5%, expenses at 2%, shortfall is at $7. That determines a net operating income of $97,315, capped at 6.95%, brings us to $1.4 million.
Thank you. Mr. Newman, did you have questions or concerns regarding that?
I have no concerns. The value is acceptable.
Thank you. Mr. Diamond, questions or concerns?
Mr. Poole, the lowering of the rent, what was that based on?
Market and also the comparables of the CRUs that are inside. If you look at the property, the CRU spaces that we have, they're very, very small, 236, 324, 300. It's a 4 CRU building. The averages when they get that small, it bumps up the rent pretty good. So it's $12 overall compared with our market rent. Our weighted average was $13.86 a square foot. Our median was $13.75 a square foot for 65 comparables. have this property about $1 or $2 underneath the average. It's acceptable given the age and what it is. It was a former apartment converted over to office.
Yeah, that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Piesch, questions, concerns? Thank you. So nothing further to present then, Mr. Newman?
That's correct.
Thank you. So we can move on to the next property, which is 1911 Portage Avenue. When you're ready, Mr. Pohl, we'll hear from you, please.
Give me 1 second, please.
Certainly.
Roll number is 0704103300. 1911 Portage Avenue. Our 2021 assessment was for $1,379,000. I'm making a recommendation for $945,000. We go through our comparables for the property. Page 9 for OFSs, we have a rental range, a weighted average of $13.86 a square foot. $14 is the average, and a median of $13.75. So it is a good analysis, very tight. But when we look at the subject property, we have a $19.96 square foot rate put on the property. I believe that is too high, given the property's use. There are a few comparables that are approaching the $17, $18 range. There's 120 at 59 Regent Avenue, 121 at Regent Avenue, but those are pretty much different out of 60 some odd comparables. So this should be an upper end rent range. $15.50 is what I'm recommending. With that, our standard parameters would apply. 5.5% for vacancy, 2% for expenses, $7 for shortfall, gives us a net operating income of $9,091 a square foot. Capped at 6.25%, changed from 5.55%. Gives us an overall value of $945,000.
Thank you. Mr. Newman, questions or concerns?
I have no questions and the recommendation is acceptable.
Thank you. Mr. Diamond, questions, concerns?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Piesch?
I'm sorry, rent was at $15.50. Yes, thank you. No other questions.
So it was a higher than average rent because it is a better than average space. But it's at $20, it's really a little high.
No other questions.
Thank you. Mr. Pohl, is 6.25% cap rate, is that within the range of OFS properties?
Yes, it is. At 5.55%, that's indicative also to the age of the property. But I thought that was too high given the rent of the upper end rent. So when you pull that back down, the risk to the actual rent in the property itself, I think 6.25 is.
Okay, so you thought the 5.55 was too low, not too high?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Newman, anything further to present on this property?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, then we can move on to the next property, that being sorry, I'm 232 Main Street. So when you're ready, Mr. Assessor, we'll hear from you, please.
Roll number is 1209780485, 232 Main Street. For the 2021 year, we have a $3,305,000 assessment value. I'm making a recommendation down to $2,624,000. But before we go through the mathematics, I'll kind of go through the history of the property. This property was acquired, and if you look on page 4 and 5, this property was acquired together, and then it was scheduled for a hefty renovation, a restoration, which is indicated on the sales questionnaires. If you look on page 6 through 9. If you look at page 10, it gives you an elevation view of the property now. We have permit values at about $4.5 million total cost for the renovation of the property, restoration of the property. And page 12 is the permit. Basically, they gutted it and they're renovating it to bring it up to current standard. It was a building that was originally started in 1883, 1884. So a significant renovation did occur. And if you look at starting on page 13, we just came through the pages. I included as many photos as we had for the board's leisure. It was a very nice renovation of the property as you go through. And that's all the way through pages 39 and 40. We look at the property now. The property that we had, as far as the expense questionnaire reports, it was basically 100% vacant, 93% vacant at the reference date, So we looked at it as what would this property bring as far as value, as far as rental comparables. Our comparisons are for OFS space on page 42 and 42 and 43, which brings us an average of $13.86 a square foot. Looked at OFD spaces, which brings us an weighted average of $12.70. And we looked at OSC spaces, which brings us a weighted average of $12. When we look at the subject income streams for the retail portion, which would be along the bottom, and then the office space above, we have rents that were in place overall, or model rents that were in place for the assessment purposes of $16.81 a square foot and $14.99 a square foot, essentially $15. I thought those rental rates were a little high, given the marketplace. It is newer space. Could they lease at the higher end of the range, all of them? Possibly. Most likely it'll lease at an average of the marketplace. So when we put $13 on for the retail, and we put the $12 on for the office space, we get a $2,624,000 total assessment. Aside from that, our standard procedures did apply. The only changes in for the retail, we have 6% for vacancy. We have 2% for expenses. We have $6.50 for the shortfall, capped at 7 3/4. For the office space for the OFD, we have 14% vacancy, 2% expenses, $7.50 shortfall, and capped at 7.15%. With that, I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Newman, questions or concerns?
No, I have no questions. The overall value of $2,624,000 is acceptable.
Thank you. Mr. Diamond, questions, concerns?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Piesch, questions, concerns?
I have no questions, thank you.
I just wanted clarification. It's $2,624,000?
Correct.
Yes. Thank you. And just aside, I was looking at the photographs, page 39 and 40 seem to be of the basement. That's not leasable space? You're not considering that as in your valuation?
No, I'm not sure if those were taken in. It looks like it's going to be finished. I'm not sure if it's finished as of January 1st, 2020.
Okay, but it's not reflected in the assessment. The valuation is not, nothing's attributed to the basement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, I thank you. Mr. Newman, anything further to present on this property?
Oh, I'm fine with the recommended value. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that will conclude our dealings with you, Mr. Newman. Thank you for your presentation today. Mr. Pohl, we still have another property to deal with. Okay, last item on our docket today is 222 Osborne Street North. When you're ready, Mr. Assessor.
Roll number is 1209149800. I've had no contact. Oh, sorry. And the assessed value is for $1,853,000. I've had no contact by the owner, and there is no brief submitted by the owner.
Thank you. Would you just walk us through your valuation, please?
Again, stated it's $1,853,000. The year built was 1951. The effective year is 1985. We have a gross floor area of 10,626 square feet. Leasable area of 8,808 square feet. There was a sale in October 4th of 2019. I did not investigate the sale as a post-reference. That would be for the next cycle. On the page 3 of the brief for the file photos, or I should say aerial photos of the property. It's just off of in between York and Broadway. And on page 4 is the elevated views of the property. It is an OFS. We brought in an OFS study, which had 65 comparables for 141,000 square feet of space leased up. We have an average of $14.06, weighted average of $13.86, and a median of $13.75 square foot. So it's a good tight analysis. Our weighted average is around $13.86 for the average, of course. The property income stream is on page 7. We have an average of $15.63 a square foot. This average, it's a little bit above the average, but still within range. We have a leasable area attributed of 8,808 square feet attached to the $15.63 a square foot, which gives us a potential rent of $137,717. Our standard parameters apply at 5.5% for vacancy, gives us an effective gross income of $130,143, 2% for expenses, and 7% for shortfall gives us a net operating income of $124,149. Capped at 6.7% gives us our value at $1,853,000. That's the presentation I have. With that, I'm open to questions.
Okay, I thank you. Mr. Diamond, did you have any questions for the assessor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Parrish. Do you?
Thank you.
And I have nothing. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Poole. With that, that will conclude our hearing. I thank you for your presentations today.